Welcome to Subramani. I keep wondering whether people introspect while investing. What am I trying to say? I am saying if you are a direct equity investor, you must watch this video and you must share it with direct equity investors. So the first question to be asking yourself is, are you adding any value to your portfolio by doing direct equity investing? And if you're very confident that you are, but you're not measured it, there's a very good chance that you're not. So it's very difficult to say that am I adding any value at all to my family's portfolio by being an active investor, or would I be better off just putting all the money in some mutual funds and relaxing and doing nothing, maybe going for more travels and holidays rather than sitting at home and picking up stocks, right? That's the worst thing to do if you're hurting your portfolio. Indexing could work, or if I know a couple of good fund managers, I could just put it there, or I could put into some of the new passive funds which are there. And very funnily, some of the new active funds which are being launched are have lesser charges than so-called passive funds. So that is the kind of margin beating that the AMC industry is taking, but that's for a different day. So what do you do? Should you sit and introspect? Should you wonder whether you're adding value? Should you say, like, for example, how much of it is luck? For example, I know one thing, that you buy commodities at the bottom of the cycle. So I had bought aluminium, I had bought steel, I bought oil, I bought sugar. All these are commodities, and all I bought at the bottom of the cycle. So for example, I don't think I paid more than 110, 120 rupees for Hindalco, which is today it's 600, or 97 rupee or 87, 90 rupees for Vedanta, and perhaps even little lesser, and that is at 400 rupees. So when all my commodity stocks, whether it is sugar or all these, are doing well, is it a time to sell, or is it a time to say, no, this is metals are in a super cycle, so I think Vedanta will reach 800 or 1000 or whatever, some put some number? Or should I just be saying, let me just get rid of it, let me get into a commodity index and say, let the fund manager worry? But when I look at some commodity funds, I don't see any great value add that can do to my portfolio. So it's very tough to say how much of it is luck, how much of it is skill. Though I know some of the principles, like when the you in a commodity, you track the price of the commodity, not the price of the share. And second, you say, okay, but a commodity will never add too much value. Why should you be in a commodity? Because commodity has made money for me, right? Coromandel International has made money for me, and it's a fertilizer. It is at best a commodity. It may not have done well in the last 2 quarters or 3 quarters, but over the last 2-3 decades, it has definitely done very well. So how much of it is luck? How much of it is perfect timing? How much of it is saying that, well, if the country does not subsidize fertilizer, it will have to subsidize food, and that is much more difficult. Therefore, the fertilizer subsidy will not go. Ultimately, commodity is a commodity, right? So fertilizer is a commodity, steel is a commodity, aluminium is a commodity. War can take prices of some commodities up. There can be a shortage, there can be some shipping problems, but then there can be shipping problems even with semiconductor chips, and your cars won't get made. So all these things can happen. So the question is, how much of application of brain can you really do? How willing are you to accept that buying SBI at 150 rupees was more luck than skill? I knew that I had to buy it somewhere around that price, but having bought it at 150 is a good price, because maybe it went down marginally below that, and then having sold at 550, now I'm sitting and wondering whether to buy more of SBI. I actually don't know whether to buy SBI at 470 or wait for it to reach 400, or whether to sell off some more shares which I have. So I sold some, whether I'm still holding on to some. So I really don't know whether I'm adding value. So if you have not asked yourself this question, whether you're adding value, I can tell you you're not adding value. And for this, you also need to check out on a regular basis. Now, I know one thing, that I don't want to compare myself to a Naren or a Prashant Jain or anybody else to say whether I should be investing, because I don't compare my cricketing skills with Sachin Tendulkar. I don't compare my vegetable cutting skills with Sanjeev Kapoor. They need to look good. They need to look good on television. They need to look good that very minute. I don't have to. I have to cook a meal for 3 people over a 1 hour period. At the same time listening to some music or watching something on one of the channels or something like that. So why am I comparing myself to a great investor or Warren Buffett or anybody? I don't want to compare. I don't need to compare. So these are two things. If I were asking you for your money and I was to build an AUM, then I would say, please come to me and therefore buy this company. This is doing very well. Well, it's not permanent, right? I can tell you all that on a Friday, on a Monday morning, I could be shorting it. I could be buying put options on that, right? So it's very difficult to ask yourself unless you measure and say, okay, I am outperforming the index, or saying I don't need to outperform the index. For example, if my dividend income is far greater than my expenses, or at least 2 times my expenses, I don't really have to worry about inflation or anything like that, because my dividend income will keep going up, and the gap might remain the same, because as you get older, inflation hits you less because of but there could be some compulsory expenses like even a diaper, to having a nurse and maid and attendant, right, things like that. So that cost could go up. But having said all that, if I can meet my requirements, if I can cook my meal in an hour for 3 people, and I'm very happy. I don't compare myself to, say, Sanjeev Kapoor and say, oh my God, he cuts vegetables so fast. If I play cricket, I don't compare myself to Sachin Tendulkar. I am not expecting to beat Sachin Tendulkar. I'm not here to make a career, right? If I go for a run, I'm not comparing myself to how fast and Indian professional can run. Forget comparing myself to an African or Ethiopian kind of runner, right? It does not really matter to me. So similarly, your investment performance should be able to meet your goals, right? So here, sorry, but You Can Be Rich Too is a clear book on goal-based investing. Get your goals clear, make sure that you are meeting your goals, and if you want to compare, measure it and then see how much is the gap. Now, even if you tell me that you have been doing well for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I am not too impressed. I do not know whether next year you will do well, or cumulatively 1 year you will lose so much that your 1, 2, 5, 7 year return will be pathetic, simply because your 7th year was pathetic compared to what others did. So how much is skill, how much is luck, what you want to do, should you think fast, think slow? Sorry, but of course I've taken the title from on behavioral finance from right. So one more thing, forget creating my own portfolio. I have no ability to know which portfolio manager or fund manager is going to perform well in the next quarter or next year, so that I could shift from fund A to fund B or fund B to fund C or whatever. I have no clue to find that out, and I don't know too many people who can find that out. So typically my talk to you would be saying, pick a range of funds. So some large cap, mid cap, some US funds, some fund investing all over the world, right? So there you avoid capital gains tax, because when they shift from the US to Japan, or Japan to China, or China to Taiwan, or Ukraine to Russia, whatever, you don't pay taxes. Whereas suppose I've invested in the US fund, which I have been doing an SIP, and I hope that it's still continuing and it will not stop. Then what happens is, I do not know when to get out of the US market, right? I've been there from 2013, so 9 years I've been there. Should I come out because I've got a good return, or should I say, well, whatever it is, some money should always be outside in the country, so let it be there in US. Otherwise, I look at this fund, which is a global advantage fund, and says, okay, let the fund manager decide where it should be. At least I will continue to do an SIP into that fund, and I will look at it after 10-15 years. You don't know. I mean, I don't know at least how to pick up that fund manager. So here I pick up a range of funds. I have some healthcare, I have some BFSI, I have some large cap funds, I have some mid cap funds, I have direct equity, I have all this, and I look at it and say, okay, is it able to meet my goals, and do I have enough income to live for the next few years? Do I have adequate insurance? Beyond that, I really don't break my head too much as to whether I'm outperforming a Naren or a Prashant Jain, and I have no business to even think that I will do it consistently. I may beat them in a month or two, that's a different thing, but will I beat them over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? The answer is of course not. The question is, I don't know how long they will be in the markets to be doing this, but have they put in a system by which I can say, okay, I don't care whether they will be number one, number two, but if they can give me decent returns, if they can give me 2-3% returns over inflation, then my life is done, because I'm here to preserve my portfolio. So don't look at me and copy me, because I have a different outlook perhaps towards life and towards my portfolio. My dividend income is enough for me not to worry about the fluctuation in my portfolio. So if you have achieved those things, then maybe it is different, or you have such a high income that you really don't mind if your portfolio takes a beating. That's also fine, right? So some of these things are true. In fact, I'm also convinced that I know all the theories and I find it very difficult to implement. Like look at something like regression to the mean. I know that, so if a fund performance of a fund manager is very good, will I remove money then from there? No. And if somebody comes and tells me, Subra, believe in the regression to the mean, here is a fund manager who has performed very badly last 3 years, so we should be investing in him. No, I'm not willing to give that fund manager a chance, but I'm happy to give that sector a chance. If you tell me that is the most underperforming sector over the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and I would look at discrete returns and CAGR, then I'm willing to look at it. But am I willing to look at it for a fund manager? And the answer is no, because if you tell me here is a guy who has attempted CA 4 times and he has failed, so now that he has failed 4 times, there will be regression to the mean and he will pass in the 5th attempt. The answer is no. I would rather look at a student who knew how to put in efforts to clear in lesser number of attempts, right? So we don't understand, so understanding that we don't understand is very useful. So reading books is really useful. And then you invest, and then you know that you're not a professional, you don't want to be a professional, and you are underperforming perhaps. Then at some stage you introspect and say, can I just put money in an index fund? So maybe I'll do it maybe 5 years later, 7 years later, or I might start right now and say all my profits will go into an index fund, maybe a world index fund, maybe something like that. But yes, it will move into an index fund. So that makes sense. What happens to individual stock picking? I really don't know, because I'm more convinced that I will be losing the skill, because when I go out for a trek, and I find all 25 to 27-year-olds, I don't even understand the profession in which they are, right? So if somebody tells me SEO, I understand that word, but there are so many other words which I don't understand. There are companies which are just doing ethical hacking. I wouldn't have thought of that as a separate profession. I wouldn't have thought of a company which is just for testing other people's software. I didn't know that TCS makes a lot of money conducting online tests and providing the backup for that, back office for that. And so when testing goes down, TCS loses money. And as more and more people go online, it means companies like TCS make money because they provide the backbone for this. I had no clue about all these things. It happens that you talk to somebody and somebody tells you something, then you put 2 and 2 together and say, oh, this is how it becomes 22, right? That's what you do. Again, looking at what has worked for me while investing in the past is absolutely no use, because I do not know whether the same things are going to work for me in the future. So knowing all this, knowing that you have had far more luck than skill, knowing and having created a portfolio and looking after, and you realize that just looking after the portfolio is good enough for the next few years, and then you can put money in an index fund or a gilt fund and start withdrawing from wherever you want to. I think life is good. So just doing that is good enough, and that's it. Thank you.